Back when it came out, my friend Robert reviewed Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them pretty succinctly. Not here. The film is a mess, both in its plot and pacing, but more importantly, thematically. That's the elephant, or erumpent, in the room here, but I'll come to it later. And before I say any more, I promise, the whole video isn't just me dissing the movie. First of all, the plot. Whew, what a jumble. There are too many plot threads going on that aren't linked to each other well, and just feel duct-taped together to facilitate clumsy story explanation. One of many, for example, is Colin Farrell and the Crispin Glover-looking kid. Farrell's character's motivation seems to swing around from scene to scene without reason. And what was up with him touching everybody's face all the time? The twist reveal was on par with some of Shyamalan's worst works. Spoilers if you haven't seen the film. He's Grindelwald in disguise. For some reason. It feels like it was tacked on at the last second during writing, and it makes the already muddled story even less sensical in retrospect. Occasional literal wife-beater Johnny Depp, who makes a cameo appearance as Grindelwald's true face, is horribly miscast, for so many reasons both on and off the screen. In terms of authorial confusion, that's just one example out of many. The film throws about 5 such issues at the viewer per scene. How, and why, does the main female character bring Newt to the magical president in her office? That's the equivalent of a Walker-beat cop bringing a break-and-enter suspect into the Oval Office to meet the President of the United States. And why did Newt even bring his entire suitcase full of magical beasts with him in the first place, if he only had to transport one creature? Why did he only have to go through Muggle customs, when we're clearly told later on that there's a wizard customs as well? The Harry Potter books threw a lot of small and often contradictory background details into the mix about how the magical world functioned and why. There, in those books, it worked. Harry was raised as a Muggle, and so he was able to share our momentary confusion before being yanked along by something else story-related. The narrative was even more interesting than those additional details, so we didn't mind being dragged along. As a result, those details just expanded the setting in a charming way that sparked the imagination. The only other story that I can think of that's done that as successfully as the Harry Potter books is the original Star Wars. This movie tries to do it as well, but unfortunately the inconsistencies just serve to irritate. Since Newt doesn't need to react to any of them, they just jar us, the audience, as plot holes do. Since there was no intriguing story to draw us along, those interesting tidbits just distracted, and made me wish that I was seeing more about those things instead. For example, the beast with foresight, but that can only see logical outcomes, so you have to be unexpected to catch it. What a great idea! I wanted to see more of that! Weirdly enough, despite being such a predictable narrative, the plot was so overcomplicated that even after the film's genuinely tedious and drawn-out climax, it still needed more endings than The Return of the King to tie it all up, and even then it forgot key players. What was the point of Jon Voight's newspaper editor character? What happened to the obvious bait-and-switch plot twist little girl? What was the point of blonde Idina Menzel being able to read minds? If Newt could just release the rock anywhere and it would be fine, because the plot says so, why did he need to take it to Arizona by himself? All that said, there are fun scenes. The Niffler is wonderfully animated as a feathery, spineless echidna, and the slapstick when trying to catch it really made me laugh. It's a rare treat to see good slapstick in a modern movie. The monkey in Central Park Zoo stealing Newt's wand was very funny, despite not being capitalised on for comedy hijinks. I had no idea what was supposed to be going on with the cockroach in the teapot, but I enjoyed it. My favourite joke, though, was when Jacob's bitten by a magical beast. You know the scene if you've seen the film. The setup was so unexpected, and the delivery was just perfect, and I laughed out loud in the cinema. JK Rowling often used clever and impish dick and fart jokes in the Harry Potter books, and this was up there with the best of those. So, what caused all the problems, given JK Rowling's history as such a skilled novelist? I think that's actually the crux of it. She's a skilled novelist, and this was her first screenplay. There are two distinct stories here, both competing for space, which grate against each other and cause tonal dissonance. There's a dark tale exploring fanaticism and manipulation in the magical world, and a wacky romp about shenanigans while catching all the Pokémon. JK Rowling is very good at merging tonally distinct concepts into cohesive stories when it comes to novels, but in a screenplay, there just isn't enough space for the techniques that she usually uses to work. They're novelist techniques, not screenwriter techniques. It needed more time to set everything up and flesh out the characters and their inner worlds, and imagining this film as an Order of the Phoenix-length novel, I can see how so many of my aforementioned criticisms would just solve themselves. Now, I need to talk about the elephant in the room. JK Rowling has a bad habit of blithely tossing around child abuse as a quick and nasty plot device. In the first Harry Potter book, the Dursleys come off as Roald Dahl-esque at best, and uncomfortable at worst. The later books go halfway towards addressing it, but even so, it's unfortunate. Here, it's front and centre! Kids being abused in the anti-witchcraft church forms a big chunk of the plot explanation, but it's never dealt with thematically. It's almost like a retelling of Matilda, with creativity/magic being repressed until it explodes as telekinesis/evil angry CGI clouds. Roald Dahl always made sure that exploring the issues surrounding these things took centre stage of his works, in terms of their theme. But zero attempt has been made to do that here, and I find that morally oblivious, to phrase it charitably. While we're talking about uncomfortable things, by the way, the erumpent wanting to have sex with Jacob was an ugly thing to hang a comedic scene on. Having said all that, to be fair, I'm going to end with my own rebuttal of myself. This seems to be a divisive movie, so I asked my friends who liked it, what about it did you enjoy? Their answers were insightful. They'd come at the film from very different angles than I had, and seen its more interesting elements shine through as a result. The aesthetic of the 1920s jazz age, blended with urban fantasy magic, just felt and looked wonderful, and having a fat comedy sidekick presented as driven and smart while still being loyal and passionate, instead of a walking fat joke, was written really naturally. So naturally that I didn't even notice it until it was pointed out to me afterwards. It's also possible to view Newt Scamander as a very positive portrayal of autism, since he behaves a lot like someone on the spectrum throughout the film. Also, having a movie about the dangers of extremism that doesn't just use that as an excuse to demonise Islam is also refreshing, and extremely important given our current social climate. And, of course, the magical president being a black woman in a time when segregation in America was still in full force. So, which view do I think is right? It might sound like a cop-out at first, but I think both are. Acknowledging that films can simultaneously be good and bad in different respects is important in trying to look at them with a critical eye, without having to put a movie into a good box or a bad box. What matters is what you thought of it, and more importantly, figuring out why you did.